Nityanandam. Welcome to Your Presence Heals, my YouTube channel. My name is Ma Nityadugananda, and today I would like to talk about a topic which is very close to everybody's heart, which is how to free yourself from your mind or unclutch from your mind maze. See, I've been spending the last 3 months teaching meditation classes at a place called Space to Be in Singapore, and I observed that a lot of people are very much clutched to this mind, and as a result, they suffer. They create pain shaft or joy shaft, and they suffer. So, I would like to share this technique or science which I learned from my guru. He's a living incarnation and avatar. His name is Paramahamsa Sri Nityananda, and technique is called the science of unclutching. So before I can delve into the technique itself, you should know how our mind works. Unless you know how the mind works, then you will know how to handle the mind. So first thing first, our mind. See, our mind constantly oscillates between past and future, due to fear and greed. And the mind is such that constantly there is a stream of thoughts, irresponsible, irrelevant, idiotic thoughts. They keep coming, and then the new thoughts arises. The good news is that at any point in time, our inner space can only handle one thought, which means each thought has to be replaced before the next one can arise. But the problem is because of our hyperactivity of the mind, we don't see the gap. There's always a gap between two thoughts. We call shatna. The gap between two thoughts is different for everybody, depending on your ability to handle your mind. See, like for someone who is constantly experiencing very high thought per second, inner chatters, the gap between two thoughts could be micro milliseconds. However, for someone who is a meditator or even like a incarnation like Buddha, his thoughts, the shatna, the gap between two thoughts could be 5,000 years. So it is basically your quality of your inner space, your consciousness, that determine what is the shatna, the gap between two thoughts. So, see, every thought that arises from your inner space, they are not connected. They are independent, irrelevant, irresponsible. This is the way how the mind works. If you sit down and for 1 minute, just pen down without editing the thoughts that come into your inner space, you'll be shocked to see that they are all over the place. One moment you could be thinking of this, another moment you could think of something else. So if you realize that this is how this mind, I call a wild child, work, and having entrusted your entire life to this mind is something seriously wrong, because it can only lead you to mess in the life. So then the next question comes is, how do you handle the mind such that you are able to experience, consciousness? See, the mind constantly like to connect with different thoughts. Let's say this moment, a joyful thought happens, and then the next moment, some other negative thought, and then another joyful thought arises. So the mind like to connect all the joyful thoughts and create a joy shaft. Whereas when the mind is, thinking of all the negativity, all the negative thoughts, and it will connect with all the thoughts that create pain, doubt in you, for instance, and you label life is painful. Like that, you create different shaft, whether it's pain shaft or joy shaft, and create bondages which bind yourself, which bind your consciousness, and you suffer from it without being aware of it. So I remember Swamiji says that the pain, let's say the back pain you suffer 10 years ago, and the back pain you suffer a year ago, and the back pain you suffer today, they're independent, they're not interconnected. But how the mind will constantly try to conclude is that, oh, I have back pain. Back pain is part of my problem. Because each back pain you suffer from different time, they are independent, but the mind will constantly try to connect and link and create certain bondages or shell for us to be clutched. Be clutched means attached to it. So that's one thing that we need to know, that the moment we are aware of these gaps between two thoughts, the more and more we are able to widen the gap between two thoughts. What happens is that you will experience the consciousness, meaning our job is to infuse awareness such that we can slow down the streams of thoughts and create a wider gap between two thoughts, so that in those gaps you experience the silence, the divine consciousness. And in those space of silence is where you experience what we call samadhi. Samadhi means, sama means falling in tune, adi means the source. So the more and more silence gaps we are able to infuse into our inner space, the more we are in tune with the consciousness, super consciousness, with the source. So this is how we should actually work on unclutching from the thoughts, because we know that the nature of the mind is to create thoughts. And the good news is you can slow down the inner chatters, the stream of thoughts, by the technique of unclutching. So how do you unclutch? Basically, you need to micromanage your inner space. Bring awareness to every thought that you entertain. Do not suppress, do not reject any thought, or do not cherish any thought. By just being aware of the thought and relaxing from it, do not try to do anything. The more you do something to it, you're giving life to that thought, whether it's getting distracted by that thought or trying to suppress that thought. Whatever you're doing, it's like you're creating more ripples in the lake. See, a still lake, when it's calm, but when you are giving life, you throw a stone inside the lake, it creates more and more ripples. By rejecting or entertaining the thought, you are exactly doing that, creating more ripples in your silence, which means the mind is more disturbed. So don't do that. The main way you should do it is to bring awareness to the thought and simply relax from it. Relax means without doing anything, just witness and unclutch from it. You should know what is unclutching. Clutch means attach. Unclutching means have the awareness to basically relax from it, and you can engage with the mind as and when you want, meaning you have the freedom, the choice to engage the mind when you need it. When you don't need it, you can simply be in the constant silence, unclutched space, where tremendous intelligence, creativity will be oozing out from your consciousness. So that is one big important technique which I've learned from my guru. How you can start practicing this technique? You can start by looking at the 5 layers of our existence, which is different kosha, different seed, we call it. We have the annamaya kosha, we have the pranamaya kosha, we have the manomaya kosha, Vinaya Maya Kosha and Ananda Maya Kosha. Each kosha represent different layers of our existence, like the Annamaya Kosha is the food body, which relates to this physical body. Pranamaya Kosha is the breath body. Then Manomaya Kosha is the mind body. And Vinaya Maya Kosha is the visualization body layer, visualization layer. And then the final layer is Anandamaya Kosha, which is your soul. So these 5 layers, when you start unclutching layer by layer, you will experience tremendous surge in energy and also restful awareness, and you will start to have fascinating spiritual experiences. Because when I did it in the Inner Awakening 2009, when I did the unclutching, just sitting with Swamiji, my guru, for hours, unclutching from the body. See, the body is where we actually hold the mind. The body holds the mind. Be very clear, the mind is not just the brain. The mind is basically not just the muscle memory, also the biomemory, which gets recorded in different parts of the organ or muscles. So when you start to unclutch from this body, when you try to sit, what happens is that whatever memories that the body has stored, basically you start to come to disturb you, like you experiencing pain, discomfort, and you try to become fidgety. Be very clear, every movement is another thought, which means you're creating more thoughts. So the whole science of unclutching is to require to be able to sit in stillness, no movement, very minimum movement. So the more and more you're able to sit still, the more and more you'll be able to go to the depth of your consciousness, because you'll be able to witness and layer by layer unclutching. It is a very, very subtle technique. The more you practice this technique, I tell you, the more you deeper, more subtle layer of your existence start to open up in you. So, and recently when I conducted this session with our fellow devotees, what happened was we unclutched from the mind. And as I was witnessing the prana, the life energy in the body, and I could experience the life force through the tip of the nose, which is the area where time is recorded, the impact of time is recorded. And the moment I became aware of that, straightway it just led me to the space, which is the consciousness. So when you start unclutching, you will see that technique itself, the science itself will lead you to more subtle layer of existence, and finally lead you to the space of superconsciousness. So give it a try. I repeat the instruction. When you're seated, sit in comfortable meditative posture, and before you start, basically visualize your body and lock the major joints, like holding a key, you're locking all the major joints in the body, and let all the joints be locked so that you don't move the body. As much as possible, no movement. Then you start sitting and watch the breath, and then from the breath awareness, watch your inner space. The moment you close your eyes, the dark screen is your inner space, and start watching your thought. And whatever thoughts that comes up, just relax from it. Don't need to do anything, just relax from it. The more and more you're able to relax and unclutch from it, the more and more you will be able to experience the silence, the gap between two thoughts, and experience consciousness. So with that, I'd like to conclude this video. I hope you enjoyed the video. Give it a try. Feel free to comment, and I'll be more than happy to reply if you have any question, doubts, clarification that need to be helped. So with that, I'd like to conclude this video. Thank you for listening. Nityanandam.